What's going on, guys? Belair here. Swiss has wrapped, and I wanted to give you guys a deep dive on our top four teams heading into the playoffs starting tomorrow. And we're going to have some gameplay on in the background and watch each of our four best teams close out and punch their ticket to their two lives to the playoffs, starting off Daniel point of view here against GK, as Daniel is going to attack that challenge with a ton of energy and momentum moving forward. NRG here, 1.63 goals per, 1.25 goals against. Both are incredible numbers. All of these are low scoring affairs. Gen G are allowing the 15th, or excuse me, scoring the 15th most goals out of our 16 teams in the field, which is really surprising for a team that has some pretty high powered offensive capabilities, as Daniel, speaking of which, is going to float one in there to get them on the board. But on the other side of that, they're allowing the least. They're number one in goals allowed per game. So they're basically winning these by a war of attrition style here. Let's talk a little bit about Daniel, who is having a pretty weird event so far. I think that these numbers are definitely going to kind of come back to earth here, but Daniel is shooting almost 3.5 shots per game, which is seventh in the field, and scoring just 0.38 goals per game, which is the second lowest. So Daniel, the 11% shooting percentage, 6 of 54, definitely something that he will want to adjust moving forward here. But he is getting the shots up, and he is first in the whole event in saves per goal allowed. Of course, like we talked about, NRG incredibly stingy on the defensive end so far. Number one in demos, number one in holding opponents to a low shooting percentage, 17%, which are incredible stats. A couple other little fun ones for you here. 7-1 when they score first, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they've done a great job of shutting down opposing stars. I mean, they held Zen scoreless when they played against Vitality despite the loss. They held Joyo and all of GK. Great save there by Daniel, by the way. Held all of GK, but Joyo in particular, to only a goal per. One goal total. Held LJ to a single goal, even though First Killer put 6 on their head. And Magic Bear only had a single goal as well, including Cheese and Rebels only having one apiece as well. So very, very stingy defense here from NRG. The difference between them and the World Championship from last season, they were still number one in goals allowed per game, very, very strong on the defensive end. And I think that in a big part is due to just how confident they are moving backwards in transition. And look at Daniel, just like so much momentum and power as he's transitioning out here. I love this decal, by the way, the stock Finnick on with the red looking pretty crispy. But they were middling offensively, so they were still like holding opponents to a really low scoring percentage, but they were scoring at a higher clip. And I think the biggest culprit there is like we talked about with Daniel's stats. Those will kind of come back down to earth here as we move into the playoffs, I would presume. And the other thing to look at is Atomic to kind of pick up the pace as well. Beast Mode's still scoring at a pretty high clip here. And that is all that we have for our NRG boys. So let's go ahead and move over to Karmine Corp. Back on the pitch with Drolly to watch them close out Team Falcons here, going 3-0. Look at that cheeky little kickoff. They're trying to have Drolly fake, then cheat up and get a demo on the third. Doesn't work out there, but an interesting look nonetheless. This team is yet to find like the connective tissue that they had online, in my opinion. They're 15th in assist percentage, and it's not like they were super high online either. Like they do find a lot of solo efforts with Drolly doing stuff like this. I mean, what are we even talking about? That was insane from him. But online, they've dropped about zero point 0.2 goals per game, and they're allowing about 0.4 more goals per game. So it sounds fractional, but that 0.6 has been a pretty big difference maker here for Karmine Corp, who are definitely not dominating at the pace in which we saw from them going 17-1 through the first 3 opens of the season. Despite that, Drali, our point of view here, leads the field in goals per game. That was a heads-up save there by Drali, and then getting that one out. I mean, what are we even doing here? Number 1 in shots per game as well. He and Zin, who we'll talk about here in a minute, the only players above 4 shots per game, and Drali hitting a huge clip of them. Despite shooting more than 4 shots per game, he is 6th in shooting percentage. So he is just getting everything that he wants in this tournament. And I want to talk a little bit about the difference here with Karmine Corp when we compare them to last season. Of course, the adjustment that they made was Drali for Rise, and I think that this is a much better position for Atau in particular. I put out a tweet about how impressed I was with him in their win over the Falcons and what he's able to do defensively, not only just as a goal line defender, but cutting out offensive opportunities in transition, playing defense off the ceiling, just like blowing up plays as the opposition is trying to navigate out of their own half. He leads this team in saves. That's how that is. And last season, he led them in shots and goals, but now he is behind Drali here. So Atau just kind of able to pick his positions, and playing off of a player like Drali just makes Atau look that much better as opposed to being the primary workhorse offensively. He's able to kind of find quality opportunities and finish those at a high clip. Worlds last season, Atau was top 5 in goals and assists, and still putting up good numbers. I think it's like 0.7 goals per game and like a similar spot with the assists, but just not having to do so much heavy lifting has been huge for Atau in his game and his efficiency here. Vatira, great floor general. Number 1 out of our 64 players in time behind the ball. So he's sitting back, he's sitting deep, he's calling out what's coming, and he also is keeping them really composed. I've been watching a lot of like the timeouts and the time leading up into the games. Vatira looks poised, but at the same time, you know, when things go wrong or things go right, he's in our middle seat. He's really getting the guys involved, a vocal leader, cheering when he needs to, locking in when he needs to. I did notice, however, that when they beat GK, Vatira, I guess he was so excited to have won that series against his former teammate. He didn't fist bump either of his teammates. They both had to chase him down and be like, "Hey man, can we get a fist bump?" So I guess that's something that Vatira could still work on. If that's my biggest complaint though, that's a pretty good team. Of course, like the wild card thing was so odd, but maybe that just speaks to some of the pressure that they were feeling coming in here. And for what it's worth, like Torsos was on fire. We talked about that in our video yesterday. If you're interested in my opinions on day 1, selfless plug, go check that video out. But Vatira, to tie a bow on this, lead facilitator for this team. He's looked excellent. They're going to be going up against NRG tomorrow, and really for me, it's going to be can NRG find those demos like we talked about? They're leading the field in demos per game here, and that's something that Wildcard were really able to find success with against Karmine Corp. Not only demos upfield, but also just knocking players off the ball. Karmine Corp love those solo plays and making mechanical efforts up in the air on the ball, and Wildcard were not having any of that. So if NRG can get physical with them and hold them to a low goals per game, that is a good way for them to try and win things. But on the opposite end here, there's Drali, who has just been dicing up every single opponent he has found. So with that game coming to a close there, let's move on to our third team, which is going to be the Ultimates. Game 2 Forbidden Temple closing out against the Falcons. This has got to be one of the most impressive wins of the whole event, in my opinion. I think if you've been following this channel, or if you're new, it's well documented that I have I, I have had my doubts about this Ultimate squad, especially at this kind of point in the major. And I gotta say, I was wrong, especially in this matchup, because they looked fantastic in sweeping the Falcons. And First Killer has been the primary workhorse for this team for sure. He is fourth in tally, which is the combination of goals and assists per game. And he's second in goal participation at 81%, which is like some old school rogue First Killer numbers for sure. But they've been scoring by committee. First Killer and LJ both 0.81 goals per game, and LJ has just been so impressive on both ends of the pitch. Chronic is gonna sneak one all the way across with the Stay Puffed goal explosion there. But LJ just again so impressive. He's leading the team in saves, and furthermore, like we said, he's scoring 0.81 goals per game on only 2.5 shots, which is the lowest on the team. So the efficiency is out of this world for LJ, and this goes back to what he was doing at Worlds last season. He was just elite offensively, if I recall correctly, at least through Swiss, maybe for the whole event, but at least through Swiss, he was leading the entire field in goals per game and just doing it all on both ends for that Space Station Gaming team. So despite being unable to win a regional yet in his career, there is just something special about LJ once he gets onto these land stages. And is he going to lace one all the way down against TRK there? No, it doesn't look like just yet, but going to take a nice little change of pace there in the middle. This Ultimates team has been so stingy on the defensive end. They have the least saves out of our field of 16 here, which doesn't sound great. It's just like, oh, you're not saving the ball a lot, but it sounds even better when I give you the context of them allowing the least shots out of any of our 16 teams, a whole half a shot less per game than NRG, who we talked about how elite they have been defensively, and they have just lived upfield. They are going full ultimates and kind of finding the play style that works well for them. I mean, Chronic is our third here, taking the least shots, scoring the least goals, but despite that, he is one of our highest players in the field here in time spent in the neutral third. So if your third man is one of the players spending the most time in the midfield, you kind of get a taste of what this team is doing on the pitch here. And despite controlling so much pressure against their opponents, they also are being incredibly efficient. I guess the key word for the Ultimates is efficiency, because not only are they third out of our 16 teams in the least time spent at 0 boost, but they're also top 3 in time on 100 boost. So this team are just finding their pads. They are locking the opposition down and just making life really, really difficult for them. Chronic and LJ, second and third lowest assists out of our field of 64 here per game. Can they find that connectivity against a team like Vitality have looked just so fantastic? And I got to say a couple more words here about Ultimates outside of our deep dive stats. I am so impressed by how this team have looked, especially in this closeout. I mean, they go to a game 3 overtime and they win it really quickly against a very, very strong Falcons team. Look at LJ flowing there, getting the wave dash onto the wall to keep things going. But First Killer has done such a great job of being a positive and vocal leader for this team. They all seem really animated and together, especially after they won this series. You know, Chronic gave a nice, honest interview where he was talking about them, you know, not really feeling as though they were looking their best during the online portion of the year, but here they are, just going 3-1, a huge win over Falcons, playing NRG close. So this is a team who have looked much better than I expected they would. But for what it's worth, not to say that I don't owe them a little bit of an apology, but I always thought that this team had the talent not only to make a top 8, but the talent to win this event. My question marks have all been about how they were going to perform on the land stage, how the bright lights were going to impact LJ and First Killer, who haven't been here just yet, and Chronic, who is chronically, pun partially intended, always stuck in the back portion of the pitch here. So is he going to have the resolve to stay on top of things when the lights are really bright? Those have been my primary concerns here for the Ultimates, but I gotta say, they have looked better than I anticipated they would. And with that closing out, let's go ahead and talk about our final team of the video, their opponents tomorrow in Vitality. Ooh, baby, I am excited about this one. Exotic point of view for their closeout against NRG in the 2-0 matchup here. Exotic hits one of the grossest shots of the entire event in this game, so buckle up. We have to start with Exotic, the World's 2024 MVP and world champion, who is one of 5 players so far in our event who are scoring above 1 goal per game. Him and Zin's 0.92 goals per game make them one of the best scoring duos we have in the entire field. They are, just a hair above a duo in a scoring sense, like Archie and Joyo, and they unfortunately have not matched the pace of Twisted Minds, who, although they're not being covered in this video, deserve a shout out. 3 goals per game for Twisted Minds, which is just disgusting. They are running teams over and turning these into track meets, which really suits their play style, being the 2nd seed from Mina. Exotic and Zen are going to both get up for this one and scare the pants off of Daniel. Everybody is going to whiff on it. Here's Exotic trying to put this one upfield here. And, Exotic, there's just something about these world stages. Like, he was the one who is my question mark for this team coming into the event. How is he going to be playing? It felt like he hadn't really found his footing offensively, but we talked about him putting up more than a goal per game. Worlds last year, 0.88 goals per game there. So there's just something about Exotic getting on these stages where he scores at an incredible clip. And not only is he scoring above a goal per game, but also leads the entire field of 64 players in shooting percentage at 41. So Exotic is getting everything that he is looking for so far through Birmingham. This team have elite metrics: 2nd in goals per game, 2nd in goals allowed per game, meaning not only are they scoring more, but they also are holding their opponents to basically no shots, and Exotic just going to pump the brakes there as Daniel goes zipping by. Defensively, 2nd in shots as well. I almost forgot that one. Defensively, this team have looked incredible as well. They're holding their opponents under 20% shooting, which, just for frame of reference, is very, very good. And they are saving 71% of shots that their opponents are taking, which is good for 1st in our field. Them, NRG, and Karmine Corp are ahead of our pack by a pretty substantial margin there. And we're going to talk about Zen, of course, in a second, but let's talk about Monkey Moon as well, who has just been the enabler that this team needs, the leader that they need. Monkey Moon is taking the 2nd least big pads out of anyone in this tournament, so he is leaving a lot of juice for his teammates here to make plays on the ball and be well fortified with boost to make those high quality plays. And he also is like splitting the difference. Like, we want to talk about Monkey Moon being an enabler. Here's 2 facts that kind of go together for you here. Not only is he the 2nd best out of our field, and he's basically first, him and First Killer like tied for this. Not only is he the player who is the farthest from the ball, but he also is the #1 player in time spent close to his teammates. So Monkey Moon is just like, hey man, I'm here. What do you need? I don't care about being on the ball. That's all you guys. I am just here to support you. in winning 50s, in facilitating the ball down to you, in keeping our opponent away. So he is glued to the ball. Excuse me, not necessarily glued to the ball, but glued to his teammates. Just the operative support player here, which is exactly what you want for this team who I think have been in the best form out of our entire field so far. I told you we were going to talk about Zen. Let's go ahead and get to it because we're going to have to stop at some point here to marvel at this goal that Exotic, I think, is going to score right here. Perfect first touch. And he's had the balloons goal explosion for quite a while. I think he borrowed that from Joria's. Let's watch that one back real quick. Why don't we? But Zen, he looks like the best player in the world. He's at least in best player in the world form, in my opinion. I mean, Drali is definitely giving him a run for his money, but he and Drali, speaking of which, are the only players in this event to be shooting above 4 shots per game. Zen is number 1 in demos, and he leads this team in saves. So not only is he shooting a ton and scoring a ton, like we talked about a second ago with him and Exotic, but he's also being impossibly physical and doing it on both ends. So incredibly impressed by Zen and this Vitality team's performance so far. Them against Ultimates, I think the tail of the tape is going to be can Ultimates kind of hold Vitality off of the scoreboard. And we talk about Zen being super physical. Ultimates have not been very physical. So if they can kind of bring it to Ultimates, that could be huge for them. But if Ultimates can get on the board early, they've done a really good job of sustaining leads once they get them. So that is it for us today, guys. Those are our top 4 teams. Who do you think has been playing the best out of the 4, and what do you anticipate will be the results from those 2 games that we're playing in Uppers tomorrow? I cannot wait for the playoffs. This major has been incredibly exciting. I have watched probably 96% of the action that we have had. Of course, well, that's probably too high mathematically because we've had teams playing at the same time, but I have tried my best to deep into the night and and in between like our dead time, going back and watching as much of this as I can. Just so pumped about this and putting out content. I'm gonna stop yammering. This video is already going to be long, so guys, until next time, thank you so much for giving me time out of your day, and take it easy.